Hi, I'm Matt Tarkenton. Thanks for joining us here on GSB TV. I'm here with Will Adams. Will, good to be with you today.
It is. It's great. I know we got a fun topic today on the subject of time. Matt, what are we talking about?
Managing your time. And most small business owners are trying to manage a lot of different things, but the first thing we want to touch on is a reality we all know. We all are addicted to distraction. It is so hard to keep focus in this day and age with phones and internet and texting. It's hard for any of us to sit in one place for 5 or 10 or 20 minutes, but we know that we have to. And
That's
if
right.
you run a small business and your most important task is making sales, you've got to find tasks, you got to find time for those most important tasks.
That's right. Finding time and managing the time that you have, because obviously we're all working from the same 24 hours in a day, so it's really kind of putting together your strategy and your plan for each day of how you're gonna maximize that time. And I know you've got some
so there's a
insights
couple
here.
there's a couple articles, and we can post and make these available, but many folks have written about time management, but specifically for someone who runs their own business or maybe is in sales. And we work with a lot of people in independent sales, and there's a great book by a friend of mine called Mad Time Ownership, and that's the website. Want to go check it out, madtimeownership.com. J.D. Clockadale, and his whole concept is built around the theory of not managing your time. We all wake up in the morning and say, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, but actually owning your time and blocking out specific time. So if you're in the sales industry and you know that you need to be calling a certain amount of prospects, whatever industry you're in, actually saying from 10 to 11:30, I'm going to take 90 minutes, I'm going to turn off my phone, close my computer, and focus on this activity. So time blocking out time, and don't let anything become more of a priority. It's easy to, I need to fill out this expense report or go watch this web video or take a phone call, but make time for your most important project, which is sales and finding new customers.
Yeah, and typically, it's the things you talk to expense report, watch a web video. It's typically the things that we gravitate to, or the things that are comfortable. They're not necessarily challenging us. It's something that you kind of get into that routine. And I believe, Matt, it was Stephen Covey who, and some of you guys have probably already seen this or aware of it, but it's a good reminder. He talks about visualizing a glass jar. The glass jar is your time. There's a defined amount of time in the day, and the exercise is he starts off pouring small granulars of sand in there, and then all of a sudden the sand is the stuff that you talk about, the email, the social media, the text, the phone calls, all the tiny little interruptions.
Yep.
There's no consequences if you really don't address them right then and there. So, it goes through, fills the sand, then it comes in with the medium-sized pebbles, which are, they're kind of important. There's going to have some consequences if you don't address them, but it's not significant. Then all of a sudden, when it gets to the big stuff, the big rocks, which is the stuff that if you don't do, there is significant consequences. If you don't make that sales call, if you don't call that customer back, you're gonna have real problems for your business. And before you know it, you've ran out of time.
Yeah, and you don't have room to put those big rocks in there.
That's right.
Versus if you focus on the big rocks first.
That's right.
If you put the big rocks in first, then you actually can fill more sand in.
That's right. You get it all in the day. That's right.
Which is a great concept and ties into this prioritization. And so one of the things we want to emphasize to you today is to own your time and to create blocks of time where you focused on the most important activity that you have. Another great blog I get every week is a fellow named Eric Barker. Now he talks about another concept which is keeping a scoreboard of your work. So if, let's say for example, we do a lot of work with independent insurance agents. If your most important task or long-term is how many prospects are you getting in front of, just create a little weekly scorecard where you say, hey, I want to get in front of 5 people every week. At least have a meeting, have a coffee, have a breakfast, have a lunch, and just at the end of that week, just say 5 or 4 or 3 or 7 or however many you have. Keep a scoreboard so it builds a little bit of an accountability system.
That's right.
Especially with independent small business owners. If you don't necessarily have an office to go to, you don't always have a boss, you don't have a reporting structure, you're accountable to yourself. But trying to create some kind of a scorecard, whether it's weekly, I would recommend you do it at least weekly, monthly at the longest. Where you're tracking whatever those most important activities are, because if you're not tracking and measuring it, you're probably not going to be successful.
Yeah, and you talk about sales agents, and Matt, a lot of the work that you do with one of our companies, Tarkenton Financial, you guys are working with these independent insurance agents, and specifically if you're in sales, or everybody's really in sales. If you're an accountant or a lawyer or whoever, you have to go and find and source clients. And one of the things that you talk about the scorecard in sales, it's you have to know and understand what your close ratio is, right? Mm-hmm. So I have to get in front of 10 people to get 5 appointments, to get 2 sales, to generate this much income. So, and it's really the same kind of thought process, and you can kind of expand that out and apply it to whatever industry or whatever business that you're operating in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we here with my dad use a lot of sports analogies. And if you look at the great sports teams, they normally have great coaches.
That's right.
And almost every coach talks about a process. Bill Belichick at the New England Patriots, Nick Saban at Alabama, Urban Meyer at Ohio State, before that at Florida. It's a process. So what we're encouraging you to do, and especially challenging for the small business owner who's time-starved, who doesn't have enough help, but spend time trying to develop a process for your business, recognize what's most important,
right.
and if it's and then create a scorecard. Whatever those activities are, you need to be doing, because if not, you'll look up 6 months later and you haven't met with anybody, you haven't met any sales, and you haven't executed on your game plan.
Yeah, that's right. And you talk about blocks of time, and I kind of wrote out what I typically operate in, the framework, right? So if you look at your wallet as 24 hours, right? How are you spending all the time you spend during the day? You're spending your money. You're spending your time in your business. You're spending your time in with your family, with your faith, whatever it may be. So if you look at that 24 hours, can you consistently identify how many hours you spend sleeping, how many hours you spend at work, how many hours you spend in travel, in the car, in traffic, how many hours you spend with family, how many hours do you have open to flex between? So when I look at my breakdown, for example, Matt, I look at 8 hours of sleep. It's important that I get my sleep. So 8 hours of sleep, almost just like clockwork, 10 o'clock at night, 6 a.m. in the morning, 8 hours, 7 days a week. Work, 10 hours. Travel, eat, that's about 2 hours. And then optional, I've got another 4 to flex. If traffic's bad, I built in a little extra time on my day. So having that very organized blocks of time and giving yourself enough flex time, mine is 4 hours out of the day, to where I can dedicate a little bit more time to whichever other of those categories that needs a little more time. So I think that's a really good place to start.
Yep.
Is divvying up your day and where you're going to spend it, and then transition it over to that scorecard. Okay, hey, within that 10 hours of work, what are the things that I'm accomplishing?
Yep. And then, one of the things that we want to close on here, I'd like to close on, is talking about strategies to eliminate what in this book, Mad Time Ownership, he calls the 3 Ds, which are distractions, diversions, and detractors, which are basically all the stuff that the cell phones, the chat a lot of times when you work in an office, you spend more time by the coffee in the water station than doing actual work.
Right.
And how you can spend that time you've dedicated to work being the most productive you can be. And one thing we've talked about is put the phone away. There are techniques like when checking email, don't incessantly check email every 5 minutes, but maybe pick 4 or 5 times during the day. So when you get to work in the morning at 8, maybe at 11, maybe later in the day. But one other concept I want to hit on, which I think resonates with all of us, is this concept of developing a deep work ritual. We all have certain times of the day that we're operating more efficiently.
That's right.
For some people, it's early in the morning. They're fresh. For most people, it's early in the morning. But when you have really important work to do, whether it's calling clients, developing sales presentations, try to find the time of the day that you're most productive, and really develop a deep work ritual. And so for some people, it's I'm going to go down to the local coffee shop, or I'm going to go into the separate room. I'm going to close the door. But when you've got that important work to do, don't do it where the distractions are there.
Matt, let me stop you there, because you talk about you talk about the deep work ritual. Do you know what else that does? It not only helps you get into your routine and your ritual, but you know what else it does? The other people out there, when they know definitively that you're only checking emails at these times of day, because that's the only time that you're opening or responding, you're also training other people to respect your routine and to respect your time, because they've just grown accustomed to knowing that, hey, Matt's not going to be looking at his email until 7 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
So it helps you kind of train others to help protect your time as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, these are really hard concepts to put into play, but I would encourage you, go check out madtimeownership.com. There's a great article, Addicted to Distraction, in the New York Times. There are lots of resources out there, but it will pay huge dividends for your business and for your individual career if you spend a little time thinking about your own personal productivity, how to maximize it, and how to eliminate some of these distractions.
That's right, and stay tuned. We're going to have some more really great, just quick-hitting topics for you guys to think about and to shake up the way that you do business. So stay tuned for more. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.